This could be us. So back to what I was saying. Could be us.
Hey y'all, it is the Bolt, and I am so happy to have you here today. As you can see, I am almost close to 100 followers. At 100 followers, I will be eating 2 hot chips. I know, you're like, what are you talking about? Yes, the hot chip challenge. I'll be doing 2 of those on stream at 100 followers instantly. Probably the stream after if I don't have the chip already. If we somehow hit them, 100 followers within one stream from now, then yeah, obviously it'd be the next stream. But yeah, but also we are doing 2 $50 gift cards at 200 subscribers, so make sure to share with your auntie, your family, your I don't know, cousin, your long distance cousin, your friends. I'm talking about the whole school, the principal, your favorite teacher, your most hated teacher. Never mind, don't do that. She might kick you out of school. You know how teachers are. But yeah, I hope you enjoy this video and make sure to like and subscribe. And it was your boy, the Bolt, and stay blessed. Let's see what we're cooking.
The year is
Bolt reacts in the building.
The American whaling industry is booming. Whale hunting is an extremely risky business.
If I saw a whale like that,
It's also
I'm
incredibly
crying.
lucrative. Each expedition costs a fortune, and 1/3 of all ships don't make it home. But successful trips are returning 10 times the upfront investment. So rich people start spreading bets across different whalers to diversify risk. The plan works out, and lots of investors get rich. But eventually, America stops using whale oil and switches to petroleum. John D. Rockefeller is the biggest winner during the oil boom and becomes the richest person in history by building the Standard Oil Company. The Rockefeller fortune gets passed down to his family, and in 1946, his descendants are looking for new ways to deploy all this capital. So they start funding risky new businesses. But at this point, they're really just treating these investments like charity and aren't thinking like venture capitalists.
Just a little history lesson?
The first
Yeah,
real
I never
attempt at making money through early stage investing
heard about
comes out of
this.
Boston. A group called American Research and Development begins making investments in several military technology companies. It's a good proof of concept, but startups that took money from ARD were required to give up 70% ownership in order to receive funding.
Dang.
Even worse, the ARD investment fund is set up as a corporation instead of a partnership, which leads to all sorts of legal headaches, including a raid by the Securities and Exchange Commission. But on the other side of the country, a few San Francisco stockbrokers are forming a group to invest in technology startups. They need a name.
I love
they
the
call it
little,
the Group. Fortunately for them, they're better at
using
investing than coming up with brand
those
names.
clips from,
And the
what is it
founder
called?
of the group
Wolf of
was
Wall
able to
Street.
turn $15,000 into $1 million by investing in a company that makes
Such a good
tape
movie.
recorders. Analog technology wouldn't last long though. Even in the 60s, people could already tell that the future was digital, and everything digital requires semiconductor chips. Now, at the time, all the best engineers are working for William Shockley. Shockley is running a semiconductor company called Shockley Semiconductor, yet another creative brand name. But Shockley is a terrible boss, so 8 of his brightest employees decide to become traitors and leave the company. Fortunately, there's a new venture capitalist in town named Arthur Rock, and he says, let's call these guys the Traitorous 8, and then gives them money to start Fairchild Semiconductor. This looks really promising. They're finally making silicon chips in Silicon Valley now, and the US government takes notice. See, it's the Cold War, and the United States needs cutting-edge technology to win the space race, so they start subsidizing venture funds known as small business investment companies. This doesn't work though, since each fund has to be smaller than $450,000, and they can't give more than $60,000 to a single startup. No one wants to work under these government limitations, so the private sector has to step up to fill the void. Arthur Rock was really onto something with the Traitorous 8 though. He made $700,000 and proved that convincing talented scientists to quit their jobs and start something new could lead to big innovation, so he doubled down.
That's such a risk.
Rock
Yeah, he's gonna have to
recognized
pay the
something
life
that
out
no
of
one
him.
else did. Even though most new ventures would fail, one big grand slam would completely cancel out.
Yeah,
all
that's a
mistakes.
risk.
Normal distributions are what most people expect when thinking about likely outcomes. You know, the familiar bell curve. But venture capital investing follows a power law with an extremely long tail of huge winners. This tiny shift in mindset would dramatically change the way new
Blue
businesses
eyes,
got
little.
funded.
Ooh!
Still only 1968, but Rock's model is already working.
I ain't
He
got
winds
nothing
up
against my
returning
eye
more
killer,
than
but
22
sometimes,
times
you know what I'm
his
saying.
initial investment, which was enough to beat out Warren Buffett's performance at the time. Rock realizes that the power law is, well, extremely powerful. No one is thinking about early stage investing this way, so he repeats the formula and helps 2 members of the Traitorous 8 start Intel. Rock couldn't stay on top
movie?
forever though. 2
Yeah, I
new
love all
venture
these different
capitalists
movie
just
like
joined
clips
the
they're
party
adding and all
and were
that
about to
stuff. It's
change everything.
awesome.
It's 1972, and 2 big VC firms launch. Don Valentine founds Sequoia Capital, and Eugene Kleiner starts Kleiner Perkins. Both had worked at Fairchild Semiconductor and seen firsthand how the venture capital model could supercharge new technologies. But there's one big question at this point. How closely should VCs and startups work together? Traditionally,
I'm just
VCs
waiting for
have
Apple
mostly just written checks and then
or
turned
Microsoft.
engineers
Yeah.
loose to go build.
Which one
Well,
do you think
Silver Hill
came
wants to test that
first?
theory.
I'm thinking
So in
Microsoft.
1973, they create the Cume model, which pairs a talented inventor with a strong outside CEO to help them build the business. This model seems to be working, so Don Valentine funds Atari,
Microsoft?
which has some amazing game
Atari?
technology, but is basically a complete mess on the business side.
What the freak?
So they build
Sorry, I was too
tandem
excited. I was too
computers
excited.
in-house and then spin it out into an independent startup. But there's clearly more to Silicon Valley than just silicon computer chips, and Kleiner Perkins knows this, so they fund Genentech to commercialize recombinant DNA technology. It's a super risky venture, but by investing slowly, one stage at a time, Kleiner winds up building a new model for highly.
Is that Jeffrey Dahmer? We got him. We got Jeffrey Dahmer. They thought we weren't going to. And then they got Joe from you. Then they got Joe from you all the way over here.
Capital-intensive businesses. It's 1977 now, and we finally get our first real household name. It's Apple Computer. And
Apple?
surprisingly, Steve Jobs gets rejected by lots of venture capitalists when he tries to raise money. That doesn't matter though, because there's finally a network of VCs in Silicon Valley, and if one says no, you can just go to a different investor. 3 years later, both Apple and Genentech go public and yield massive profits for their investors. Everyone in
Apple
Silicon
Computer.
Valley is pumped and wants to double down on the venture model. Now, the East Coast isn't asleep during all of this. New Enterprise Associates starts to build a venture presence on the East Coast, but Silicon Valley is still stronger. Just look at the story of Bob Metcalfe. He invented Ethernet cables and basically made the modern internet possible, but he couldn't get East Coast VCs to invest at the terms he wanted, so he wound up building his company in Silicon Valley. Everything's going well in California, but now investors have to make a choice. Up until this point, venture capitalists took a very general approach, investing in
Yeah,
whatever
he's smart.
technologies seemed to be on the cutting edge. Arthur Patterson and Jim Schwartz think that there's a better way though, so they start Excel Capital to specialize in particular industries. Instead of looking at a semiconductor company one week and then a biotech company the next, Excel
that a
chooses to
Razer
drill down
laptop?
and focus just on telecom companies. The 80s are a boom time for Silicon Valley. Not only are tech companies doing extremely well, but tax laws and financial regulations are changing to supercharge the venture capital model. Capital
Dang.
gains taxes just dropped, and now pension fund managers can allocate money towards venture capital. This leads the total size of VC funds to quadruple to $12 billion in just 6 years. VCs have more money now and are becoming a lot more powerful, and the question of how much control investors
12.
should have over the companies that they fund pops up again. It's 1987, and Sequoia makes an incredible investment in Cisco, but they wind up overhauling the management team in the process. Sequoia becomes the first VC firm to ever make more than $100 million on a single investment, and it's a huge win, but this would wind up changing the way founders think about maintaining control in future Silicon Valley cycles. Things really start to heat up in the 90s.
I want a dog.
John Doerr funds a company called Go with the hopes of basically building an iPad, but it fails. That doesn't matter though, because of the power law. VCs have fully embraced the idea of swinging for the fences. After all, venture investments have unlimited upside, and the 90s are the perfect time to embrace this mindset. Excel, NEA, and Menlo Ventures team up to fund UUNet, which takes the government-run internet and brings it to the public. The internet is still very primitive at this point though, so Netscape pulls in funding from Kleiner Perkins to build a new web browser. There's still a big problem with the internet though. It's hard to find stuff. So in 1995, Sequoia invests in Yahoo, and the search engine market starts growing. Everyone in Silicon Valley can see
I still
how
hate
important
Yahoo.
search is going
I
to
don't
be,
care.
and international funds start
Google
taking an
over
interest.
Yahoo.
Masayoshi Son has a massive war chest and wants a piece of the action, so he goes to Yahoo and offers to write them a $100 million check. The Yahoo team is hesitant. No one's really ever done a deal like this before, but they don't like the idea of a
Freak-ass
competitor
blue
having
cheeks.
$100 million in the bank, so they take it. Growth investing has finally arrived, and it's shaking things up. Amazon also gets going in the 90s, and again,
Amazon was in
John
the
Doerr
90s?
gets Kleiner Perkins in early and makes an absolute killing on the deal. At this point, he's clearly Silicon Valley's top internet investor, but plenty of VCs would be coming for his crown soon. The next big 90s breakout is eBay. The auction site is growing exponentially, and Benchmark's Bob Cagle makes an incredible early investment. Most venture capitalists are scrambling to raise bigger and bigger funds, but Benchmark is staying lean and focused, and winds up generating a $5 billion profit on the eBay investment. But things are changing for traditional venture capital firms.
Yo,
With
they
so
just
many
keep on
successful companies
making
in Silicon
money.
Valley, individuals can now help startups get off the ground directly. Now, Google isn't the first company to raise money from angel investors.
How to
but when
kiss.
Sergey Brin and Larry Page raise a full $1 million without even talking to VCs, it's clear that the landscape is shifting. 1999 was in some ways the dawn of the fully empowered tech founder. Larry and Sergey were engineers, but they dictated aggressive terms to both Kleiner Perkins and Sequoia when they raised their Series A. These two rival firms wanted the whole round to themselves, but the Google founders knew that they had leverage, and they exploited it. One of the hardest things about building a new business is attracting talent. Small startups don't have the cash to outbid bigger companies on salary, but stock options provide a solution to this problem. All of a sudden, a talented engineer can
Facebook better
essentially
blow
be
the
granted a big
Facebook's
ownership
gonna
stake in the business,
come
all
in
with
and
zero
thrash
upfront tax liability.
everything.
Stock options were fuel on the innovation fire in Silicon Valley, but the secret about their power was out, and it wasn't long before Goldman Sachs brought them to China while financing the e-commerce site Alibaba. It's now the new
Alibaba.
millennium, and internet companies hit a turning point. People are freaking out.
Oh, yeah,
about
look-
Y2K
look at
computer
the
buzz,
golden year
and
right
the
there.
attention on technology is reaching new heights. VC firms now have $104 billion under management, but things are about to get rocky during the dot-com
Like
bust.
me investing
Suddenly,
into
everyone
what?
realizes that even though these technologies are amazing,
You
there
just
aren't enough
old.
people using them. The numbers don't add up, and the dot-com bubble bursts. The market sell-off doesn't really matter though, because the smart investors realize that this new technology will eventually win out, so the big players start adjusting. SoftBank winds up making a fortune on Alibaba, which offset its US tech losses, and Tiger Global becomes the first hedge fund to cross over into startup investing. A few years after the
It was
dot-com
actually
bust,
like this.
tech is back on track.
Oh yeah, look.
Google goes public, and interestingly, they use a dual-class share structure, which ensures that the founders will remain in control
This is
forever.
no cha-
It's becoming
no
clear
character.
that great founders are capable of thinking in decades and planning for extreme long-term growth. So in 2005, Peter Thiel launches Founders Fund with the core mission of supporting founders for the long haul. It's a different approach from traditional venture capital, but he's not the only one developing new ways to build startups. Paul Graham and Jessica Livingston launch Y Combinator, which essentially creates
I
a
haven't heard
startup
about that.
incubator model. Their plan is simple: back promising founders earlier than any venture capitalist would, and focus on highly technical individuals. Facebook is also
Shia
starting to
LaBeouf.
change how Silicon Valley operates by the mid-2000s. Mark Zuckerberg is going around the valley
Oh,
pitching
GGs.
investors in pajama pants and
GGs.
still getting term sheets. He does run into a problem though. After 5 years of solid growth, most tech companies would go public, but Yuri Milner offers Zuckerberg an alternative. See, Milner had done extensive research into Facebook's growth numbers and could tell that the site was going to be massive. Instead of a traditional IPO, why not take a large growth equity round and stay private longer? It was an uncommon path at the time, but it would quickly become immensely popular. With a huge wave of tech companies reaching new heights toward the end of the decade, Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz launch a new venture partnership. The name Andreessen Horowitz is a bit long, so everyone shifts to calling them A16Z. Mark and Ben realized that startups are all about talent, so they modeled their firm on the prominent Hollywood talent agency, CAA. Remember how Sequoia got squeezed out of taking the full Google Series A? Well, in 2010, they invest in the Chinese shopping company Meituan and wind up making more money on that bet than they did on Google. Even though China's tech industry was delivering incredible returns, America wasn't slowing down. By 2013, there are so many late-stage tech companies worth more than $1 billion that we need a special word for them. How about unicorn? Those are rare, right? Well, they wouldn't be for long. In 2017, Masa launches the nearly $100 billion Vision Fund. All of a sudden, any startup with solid growth numbers can stay private for years and raise hundreds of millions of dollars. Dozens of new unicorns are created overnight. It's shaking up the industry, and Sequoia isn't happy about it. Mike Moritz is worried that all this cheap capital will distort the market for technology investments, so Sequoia fights back with an $8 billion growth fund. VCs now have more money than ever before, and this unlocks some unique opportunities. Elon Musk had proven that the right founder could disrupt pretty much any industry as long as they had enough runway
What you
to
watching? We watching some the entire history of Silicon.
work on the problem for decades.
We just like watching
Founders
how
Fund
like,
had witnessed this
everything
firsthand when they broke through
got,
in
like,
defense
bigger and bigger.
contracting with
All that
Palantir and
stuff.
SpaceX. So they doubled
From
down
the
and
space-
backed Anduril.
the space
Founders
race to
can
now.
raise billions of dollars in venture capital, all without losing control over their companies. When it works out, everyone gets rich together. But if there are bumps in the road, things get messy. In 2018, Benchmark goes to war with Travis Kalanick for control of Uber. It's a big turning point in the extremely founder-friendly environment, and things don't stop here. Then WeWork tries to IPO, but ultimately has to pull the offering. there's a big messy fight for control over the company,
Spider-Man.
and people start thinking that maybe these big startups are staying private too long. And that brings us to today. 2 years of lockdowns have fueled even more growth in new technologies, and now $900 billion is sitting in venture capital. All this money is hunting for the next big breakout, but it's unclear where the industry will go from here.
I ain't gonna say
If you
it,
wanna
but
learn more,
let me
you
know
have to
if
read
y'all
this book called
if
The
y'all
Power
trying to
Law
go
by
get some
Sebastian
shiesties.
Alabama.
Let me know.
It's an incredible read. I'll link it below. The Power Law demonstrates the importance of finding a few huge successes early on. But with so much
I'm
money
joking.
chasing
I'm
so
joking.
few
It's all
opportunities,
GTA.
the typical return targets might need to adapt. The entire goal of venture capital is to outperform the S&P 500. No one wants to pay management fees to a venture capitalist if they could earn a better return by buying an index fund. And if you're looking for more amazing Silicon Valley history, go watch this video about how Elon Musk built SpaceX. It's a really incredible story. Thanks for watching.
Oh, look, it's me. Wow. Amazing video. Nonetheless. That was crazy. I love history lessons.
Homie, I wonder who wrote it. Oh shit. Oh, take, pray them niggas go away. Oh, we sell the clowns around it, look like circus show. Like, this is not the album either. These are just